Welcome back to the Ink Sink. I am Annie, and I'm here with the beautiful Kaylee. How are you, sweetie?
I'm wonderful, my lovely friend. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It is so fucking cold outside.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a little warmer than it's been. It was above freezing today, so that's good.
There's actively frozen water falling from the sky, so I'm not sure.
It didn't stick. I could drive here.
You did. You were able to drive.
I didn't tell you before, but when I went to come over, I had to sweep off my car. Thankfully, it was still pretty loose. But There was a lady and her son. The son was really cute. He was very young. And he was fascinated. I was like, your mom is doing the same thing. You don't have to. But he kept following right behind me. So I had to be so much more methodical about what I was doing because I couldn't just sweep snow onto this small child.
You could have.
I could have. But his mom kept finding him, like, no, come back. And then, he'd be, right there again. It was just really funny.
Oh, my God. Kids are so creepy sometimes. He just appears at your elbow. You're like, ah!
Basically. It was funny. But he just was very enthusiastic. He wanted to support me.
Look, when you get the opportunity to awkwardly stare at someone sweeping off their car, you gotta take it.
Shoot your shot. You miss everyone you don't take.
I do want to say, listeners, I had planned to publish an episode on February 13th. You might notice it is a little bit later than that when this episode comes out. I don't know if I can apologize to you since I didn't tell you guys that I was going to be publishing one, but we're going to try and stick to our bi-weekly schedule from here on out. Kaylee and I both work. I'm in grad school. It's a lot. We're doing our best.
Annie is learning. Guys, I just want to be very clear. She is amazing. She's learning about all of the editing that is needed to go into a podcast like this and audio manipulation in general, adding the additional overlays and musical content. So I feel like it's totally reasonable that it might take a little longer, especially when this is not her full-time gig. So
thank you, Kaylee. I appreciate you.
God, boo.
But yeah, so we will hopefully have a more regular schedule moving forward. Thank you for bearing with us, you 7 listeners. We appreciate you. We're up to 7. Yeah, last time we recorded it was 6, and now it's
soon. Our army continues to grow.
We're gonna be so powerful.
We hit the double digits.
Our library army will take over the world.
Join our force.
Yes. We have a book sale piece of news that I wanted to talk to you about. I sent you this article from Esquire, which was about this group of crypto investors who jumped into an auction for an art book which had the production art for an unmade version of the movie Dune.
There is, to be clear, there is a documentary about this movie.
Yes.
You can look up.
The movie did exist. The movie has been kind of in a legendary status as a movie that tried to do the impossible because it wanted to film a bunch of things.
They wanted Salvador Dali.
They wanted
in the movie.
Salvador Dali in the movie, which should give you some idea of how ridiculous it was. This art book, which had the production art for this, was purchased for $3 million, which is several times more than the asking price.
Which they had estimated would go for $40,000-ish.
Yes, it is a rare book, but
it's not
that rare. There are several copies.
There's 20 in the wild somewhere.
Yeah, this group bought it, and then they put out a statement that said that they were going to publish it for free online, burn the physical copy, and then make an animated mini-series based on this book. Kaylee, why can't they do that?
Because this is just a copy of the book, not the copyright of the material. I was joking with Annie. I'm still angry and confused about NFTs in general. I have all of the facts, and I'm still angry and confused somehow. And this group managed to raise up millions of dollars while somehow understanding less about NFTs and copyright than me.
I have to say, the NFT situation seems to have a fundamental misunderstanding of copyright. So for those of you who don't know what an NFT is, it's just a crypto token. If you've heard of a cryptocurrency or any other type of crypto token, it's basically just that, but NFTs are usually linked to an image or a painting. And one of the NFT groups that was selling these tokens, linked them to some Inuyasha art, which they didn't own the copyright for. And now the Inuyasha people are like, excuse me, that's our IP. Like, you can't just sell our IP. Like, that's not how copyright works. In school, I'm in copyright law class right now, and I will say it is one of the more boring classes on the face of the earth. However, it is immediately applicable to this situation.
This is hilariously timely,
you
for sure.
You can't just do that.
That's when you get cease and desist letters.
Yes, it is.
And that's when these guys are currently in the market for, because that's what they're dealing with right now.
Yeah, so the follow-up to that story with the Dune art book is that they then eventually have been informed that they can't just do anything.
They
and
just
also
shouted into the wilds of the internet, we're gonna do the thing.
Yeah, and as a heads up, the book is actually also available for free.
It is free. It's been available for free for like 8 years.
You can log on to Al Gore's internet and see it for yourself if you want.
It's in the tubes, guys.
You can find it. Yeah, so they apparently have been meeting with a bunch of lawyers and producers and rights owners, and if they end up being able to make a Dune animated series out of whatever this kerfuffle ends up being, I will be very happy. Dune seems really cool. Like, it would lend itself to a cool animated series.
I would be very interested, and it probably, at the most, I think it would be like the Herbert estate being like, oh, there's more gumption on like a miniseries now in a different fashion, and like they just did the Vox Machina miniseries that's done very well. Like, maybe the people that actually do have the legal right to produce this material will drive that forward.
Yeah, and it's been getting a lot of buzzy news because it very much feels like
it's absurd. It's just absurd. It's just like one of those news stories where like we're all really tired of depressing news, and this is just
bros being bros.
Nobody as far as we know of has gotten hurt, so we're all kind of like, hey, how did they get all that money? I wish I had that kind of money.
They were just so optimistic.
They really, I was so reading gorgeous. Like the original like what they said, and they technically didn't like promise anything, so they're fine, I guess, but like it's just like, I don't know why you thought this would work. Again, I'm angry and confused. Like, I acknowledge many of the facts about NFTs. I still don't get it, but I could tell you right away what wouldn't work.
Again, guys, the sheer wholesome optimism of a bro is there's nothing more pure in this world.
It's true. Regardless of the end result,
it's great.
They had good intentions.
And like, it's really tough for me to be mad at them because something dumb happened, but also just like, I'm like, go get him, buddy.
Good luck.
If anyone can do it, it's you.
You got the gumption. You got some determination. You got grit.
I'm painting the puppy dog bro with a broad brush, but in my experience, this is all of them. Like, that's how they are.
Yeah, if they're not like total shitbags, like it is legitimately like one or the other. They're
it's
like
a binary,
total scum, or
it's
they're
either
just
a finance
like, a
bro,
golden retriever of a person.
Yeah, I can't get mad. Yeah. Keep on keeping on, fellas.
We'll keep you posted if we're gonna find out about another new Dune miniseries, I guess.
Speaking of the thorny nature of publishing books, I do want to say for the next probably 5 or 6 minutes, we are going to be talking about the Holocaust. If that is something that you do not want to hear about, please fast forward. Unfortunately, it was a lot in the news over the past couple weeks, so we have to jump into it. There's a controversy about a book being published about Anne Frank, the betrayer of Anne Frank. This comes from The Guardian. This year, the book pointed a finger at a suspect in the Anne Frank case. This guy has passed away, so he's not around to defend himself. So they're really just going off of the evidence that they are able to find. I mean, I haven't read the book, but it seems like there was just a huge backlash to the book itself coming out. There was a 60 Minutes episode on it. And a lot of historians are saying this is shoddy research. A lot of people are saying, I don't believe that this person did it, or they have other theories. So the publisher is pulling back and saying it's going to delay some of the publishing events, and it's going to delay the actual book launch and do a little bit more research and probably republish it a little bit later.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, so there was like a research team that was part of initial investigation that went into the information that is collected in the book. And at least one of them have responded and said that they felt that the facts were stated and also caveated appropriately within the book. So they're not really sure what the issue is, but it says within 24 hours of the publication, like this must have been an early pre-release or something. I saw the reaction pieces, but nothing about the actual launch of the book, and I haven't had a chance to read it, obviously, so I would be interested in seeing the edition that they're responding to. And yes, you're 100% correct. The person that was called out in the story died in the 50s. That doesn't necessarily mean that he has no family. Definitely, especially with the contentious nature of cultural approaches to discussions on the Holocaust, the deep and reasonable wounds that still remain. You don't want to point the finger at like a person's family or draw a target on people that may not have anything to do with.
I do want to just, if you've never read The Diary of Anne Frank, or if you weren't in the US maybe, she was a teenager during the Nazi occupation in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Her family and some other Jewish refugees, they were sheltered and hidden after the Nazis arrived in Amsterdam, but at some point the Nazi forces were made aware of their location and later died in a concentration camp. Tragically, I mean, all deaths in concentration camps were tragic. It's tough to even talk about it without getting emotional.
The book will make you cry.
Her diary did survive, and it was later published by her father, her diary of her time in hiding. And it is read in classrooms all over the US, at least. And over the years, a lot of people have speculated about how the Nazis found out about her family's hiding place. But it's been kind of a back and forth. I don't know that there's ever been like a definitive person, and this book came out pointing the finger at someone that I had never heard of before. And again, he has passed away and he's not around to defend himself, and his kids aren't probably able to defend him either. But a lot of people on both sides of the argument are upset. As I said, some historians are bashing the research. Some commentators are upset because this man was a Jewish person, and they just have a lot of
the most insidious tactics that were used at
the
time too.
I mean, the horrors of the Nazi occupation weren't just in the concentration camps; they were in the cities as well. Of them forcing people to turn on each other. It's not totally out of the realm of possibility, and I don't want to downplay that it might not have been this person, but even if it were, that's still incredibly heartbreaking.
It's a tragedy.
She has become, I would say, such a symbol. I can only imagine how emotional this is for people.
The face of sympathy.
And so many victims who just, we never know their names, never heard their names.
Couldn't. Yeah, they burned all the records trying to prevent people from acknowledging or seeing the truth of the awful atrocities that they were committing.
And unfortunately, we have to stay in the Holocaust for our next story as well. But after that, we're done. If you want to just skip forward again 5 or 6 minutes. A Tennessee school board has ruled that the graphic novel Mouse, which is an account of the Holocaust, should be taken out of an 8th grade curriculum. Collectively, the book reading populace of America seems to have said,
this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Tell me more about this book.
Mouse hit the bestseller list almost immediately. Again, for those who may not know, Mouse is another Holocaust story.
If you're interested and hadn't heard of it, M-A-U-S.
Yes, and I do 100% agree with the people who say that it is disturbing. It is.
It's about the Holocaust.
The Holocaust is disturbing.
Let's be clear. The reasons that were given for this book being removed is that there is
nudity
and strong language,
which just is
not the awful things that happened in history. And again, and it's not that there's nudity of people; they're mice.
Yeah. So Mouse, the book does add a little bit of distance in it for kids by using anthropomorphized animals, because it is hard. It is hard to even conceive of the horror of the Holocaust, and having it have a little bit of a buffer there it makes it a little bit easier for some people to
process what an awful thing that happened.
Exactly.
It's very difficult to wrap your brain around the villainy some people are capable of.
And it's called Mouse because the Jews are mice in these books, and it is written by Art Spiegelman, and the narrative is based on a non-fiction account of Spiegelman's family. I will say, I do want to just quickly, while we're on the topic, say that they did not ban that book.
They just pulled it from.
They pulled it from a specific curriculum
in that middle school.
And I get why, the term banned books is so inflammatory, because it is. It's you should not be banning books. But I wish that I could see the minutes from that school, figure out what were they thinking, what was that conversation? Because the statement that they released doesn't make a ton of sense. I mean,
and I was just thinking about when I was reading the original article to the comic shop response.
Yeah, there was a comic shop in Tennessee that was just come buy our Mouse copies.
They're subsidizing it. They were going to loan it. They were going to just do straight up free loans, and then they were actually able to collect GoFundMe support came in, and they're going to and they're working with the publishers to just purchase copies they can distribute to students. Yeah, I don't want people to come away with the impression that Tennessee is just backwards or whatever. There were some weird decisions made here, and there are still people that have common sense. okay, like Winnie the Pooh doesn't wear pants, guys. Like, let's be clear.
That's nudity.
It's nudity. And yet, I bet you if I were to go to that school, on their elementary school shelves, there's going to be a copy of the 100 Acre Woods somewhere in some fashion.
Winnie the
with
Pooh.
A pantsless bear. Right? Like, anyway.
That exhibitionist bear.
So stupid.
We've talked about pre-printed scientific articles before. I don't know that I published this episode, but
It's such a great, I love this discussion and the fact that this article addressed what we so recently had an issue with.
yes. So we've said that pre-printed articles are kind of vaguely untrustworthy, but now we have some hard numbers on exactly how their conclusions have been changing from preprint to actual publication. Anyway, yeah, so you, had you heard about preprints before we had talked about it, or was this something that you had just learned about when I brought up how angry I was about it?
No, I mean, I knew about it because of the issues that came up with the journalists using them, specifically during COVID, and like the nod and to and against using them in a situation like this, because we are, as a culture overall, and this is just like a global society, should I say, like we've got so much technology available to us and so many avenues that haven't quite caught up with their protections against misinformation, or not even necessarily misinformation, but evaluation of ongoing maybe investigations or experiments or criteria that is still coming through from, say, the initial study groups or whatever. And that, like, I understand how we got here. It's just journalism's just having a rough time of it, guys. It's not been great. So, Annie, tell us more about, like, preprints. Like, I don't know if we published this previously. Why don't you...
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think everybody knows, like, there are scientific journals out there. They publish scientific studies that are thoroughly researched and peer-reviewed, and a lot of times they are behind a paywall. But during the COVID-19 pandemic, the scientific community kind of got together and were like, this is an emergency. We need to have a much faster way of getting information to people, because the peer review process, the publishing process, the process of doing and redoing experiments, it takes a while. It can take years for a study to be published. And the scientific community, especially the medicine and chemistry communities, were like, we need to speed this up. So what they did was they just started publishing their studies before they were peer reviewed, before all the data was in. Well, some of them before all the data was in. The good ones all had their data in, but they were just being published pre-review. So those are called preprints. Before they're being printed, they're being published. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of squishy because, it is science. And in theory, it's being done by professionals. And in theory, all that peer review is supposed to do is just confirm that it was all done correctly. Now, often peer review points out when things are done badly,
or just worded badly for their conclusions,
yeah,
or ambiguously in such a way that the reader may not draw what the initial writer or purveyor of the survey or study intended to say.
And of course, a scientist who does the thing is always like, oh, it's perfect, I've done it, it's awesome, I don't need review.
But he's also not a writer.
Exactly. So it's very important. The process of reviewing and editing is very important, but they're like, we need to do this very quickly, so we'll just start publishing things preprint, and then we'll, then have the peer review and all that stuff go forward, and still have the published journals be the journals of record. Unfortunately, these preprint servers were open and accessible to everyone, which means that normal, average, everyday humans, including journalists, including people who didn't understand how all this worked, were just accessing these journal articles.
That they had gone through the process.
And assuming that this was hard, proven science, and then reporting on it as if it was hard, proven science. So we got this one from the Journalist Resource. 2 studies have gone into those preprints and talked about how their results have changed between preprint and actual print. And they showed that the conclusions actually do change. And one of the biggest things is that some of these preprint papers just had such shoddy information. This is a quote from the article. The biggest surprise was how difficult it was to access the supplemental data, end quote, which means that the people who were reporting on this data were not actually seeing the data. And now as an editor and a fact checker, that's a huge red flag for me.
No.
But these journalists apparently were just publishing this as if it was fact. And this is such an oversight. I mean, it's such an issue. It's one of the main things I do as an editor is fact check for something like this. The data
And this is what happens
needs to be there.
You don't properly fund your editing departments.
That is exactly what happens when you fire your fact checkers. This happens. It's an issue. And it's concerning that this is happening in 2022 when information literacy should be so much more widespread. It really should be. I'm sorry to get up on my soapbox, but...
No, and it's not just that, I mean, because this particular study that you're referring to from Journalist Resource, that's specific to preprints that did go to print.
Exactly.
Those numbers. So it's like, I think 17% is what it said, just under 20, of the conclusions reversed, essentially.
Changed, yes.
In 17% of these articles.
Yeah, so originally 17% of these were published with a conclusion, with the result, and then they were found to be wrong. They were found to be wrong.
So it was retracted, or it was different.
Changed,
and so they
yeah.
changed it. So, and this study doesn't include the ones that were just as preprints retracted or never
published.
Just never published.
We've talked about some of the crises that are happening in scientific papers, scientific academia right now, and this is just one more. They're calling it the preprint crisis in scientific circles. And there's no easy answer, because if you suddenly take all these offline, then there will be backlash. If you start labeling them differently, I mean, maybe people aren't even reading these labels to begin with. Just making sure that you are aware of what you're citing. It's very, very important. We are going to jump into our favorite section our favorite news section, women and minorities being badasses in publishing. This comes from Publishers Weekly. HCCP is launching a platform for Black Christian voices. Apparently this is one of the first ever platforms that is specifically geared towards Black Christian voices. And I will say, like, Christian voices in publishing are a minority. This is something that this is not a huge market, so I'm very, very excited for them to continue.
And I mean, when we say that it's not a huge market, I think that the market itself is probably much larger.
The audience is probably much larger than it could be.
Than it has been.
Yeah.
Like, probably we can segue into.
Yeah. Related.
But yeah, I think that this, market research, market outreach, whatever you want to call it, has not been just provided.
Publishers Weekly also reported that in industry news, sales rising for Christian retailers over the past several months. Apparently, when the pandemic, a lot of Christian bookstores are just for the first time getting online.
Oh yeah,
which is bonkers.
I have thoughts. Not all of them. I mean, they almost certainly had websites of some sort of variety.
Sure, yeah.
Before. Some of them had websites of some sort of variety before. I think it's a combination of things, and I just say this from having older religious family members.
Yeah, I'm not a religious person, so I have absolutely no idea what's going on in this market.
So it's a combination of things, in my opinion. So the numbers in question were comparing 2019 up through 2021, and the growth, just finding out a fairly astronomical growth. And so, throughout the article, it's from Publishers Weekly, as Annie had said, they're talking about how, like, genuinely during the pandemic, a lot of these places recognized, because everyone else is doing it now, there was more resources potentially available. Just the sheer conversation happening kind of kicked it off to do digital outreach to their audience, to their target market. In addition to, they'd also set up things that made it easier for their audience to engage with them. Like they had online ordering, or order and pick up. So order online, pick it up in the store kind of deal, to make sure that they have the book that you want or the thing that you want. And apparently they just started in a lot of these Christian bookstores. So it's just fascinating that, like, it took this kind of kick in the butt to do that. And then immediately, as with almost every other untapped market, oddly, sales and profits surged. So weird. If you put literally any time into telling your clients that you have ways for them to make the purchases they want to purchase. So it was also interesting, though, that it's just a little fact. Bibles were only 8% of their sales, but 23% of the sales dollars. Y'all buying some deluxe Bibles.
Bibles are expensive, apparently.
Gold plated, because that's actually true. They do line many of the editions have gold edged
like
pages.
Real gold.
Yes,
I've never bought a Bible before, but I had assumed it would be like comparably priced to a paperback.
They can be.
Is that blasphemy? I don't know enough about religion to know if that was a horrible thing to say.
No, it's not like
that.
They just have books. It's fine, but like apparently, like there are like, and I knew that you could buy real fancy Bibles.
Yeah, right.
It just seems, I genuinely think if you were to say something in this conversation is sacrilegious, it's not going to be the Bible that is approachable to everyone. That's all I'm gonna say.
I know that Martin Luther wanted us to have like a trade paperback Bible. That was one of his 94th
That's when
theses.
He nailed it into the wall. He said, I want this to be accessible. And he was right. He made it accessible. That's exactly what Martin Luther did.
And that's the end of our news. And moving into our favorite non-news section. Kaylee.
Ma'am.
What are you reading?
So I did, just last night, pick Gideon the Ninth back up. But I haven't gotten too much further into it. I apologize. But before that, I actually just dove back into some poetry, to be honest.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite short collections, it's very, very good. It's called And Her Soul from Nothing. It is a feminist, modern book. It's not huge. It's relatively thin. I really like it. It's one of the good ones in my opinion. I read it when I was in college, so I had picked up a digital copy. Coming to terms with life and the people in your life and stuff. So it's again modern poetry. It's not lots of rhymes or anything, so I apologize.
Never apologize for your poetry, Kaylee.
I think that it's got a lot of value just for like the nature of sparse details contributing a lot of emotion and emotional development. But then, so I was reading that again because I just needed to reapproach my poetry roots. And then I jumped back into Gideon the Ninth and Gideon getting her ass kicked.
As she often does.
She often does. So, just restarted that one. Still, I loved my poetry book that I had reread, and I'm really enjoying, of course, Gideon the Ninth. Looking forward to crying my eyes out at the end, I'm sure. What are you reading, Annie?
Oh, I am reading Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I think I told you about it a little bit last time. It's one of those books where the timeline is split. So it's like one chapter you're in one time and another chapter you're in another one. So the main character is the same in each one, but like in the modern day one, he's a psychopath ex-con and he's in like this prison break thriller. And then in the 10 years ago time, he's in this like dark academia science paranormal mystery. Like I haven't gotten very far in it. It's really, really good. I've also been just, laying my head on some fanfic lately. You talked about Vox Machina earlier, and I've liked it a lot, and I am looking forward to getting into some of the fanfic for that as well.
Yay!
Really good.
Yes. Okay. So I just want to be super clear that they have a graphic novel. If you're interested,
do they? Okay.
They are probably going to do the same thing with their season 2 characters at some point, at least for the novel, the graphic novel.
I don't know anything about Vox Machina. I'm told that it's based on like some specific group's D&D campaign.
Yeah. So
I guess it's a famous group of D&Ders.
Okay.
Dungeoners? Dragoners?
Delvers.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. I don't know if there's actually yes, it is a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, but so basically this particular crew, it was actually there's a crew of voice actors.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Are they the voice actors in the show?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And they might be some of them, just not all of it. Like,
okay.
I'd have to go back in and double check.
The voice acting is pretty good, so.
Yeah, that's just it. I mean, they're in the show, but like they're not like the whole crew.
Right.
So the show itself is just it's Critical Role. That's the team.
I've heard of this. I have not watched it, but I've seen the memes and I've liked them.
Yes, they're fun. Yeah, so it's an existing world that Wizards of the Coast has established, but Matthew Mercer is their GM, their game master, and he has done a lot of work across the board.
Is this a new thing? When I was playing D&D, it was always DM, Dungeon Master. Is Game Master like the new word for it? Yeah. Why? Is it because we're not always in dungeons?
I guess I don't know. I've actually wondered why.
Listeners, if you know the answer to this question, let us know, because it feels like one of those things where like people who are Catholic always talk about how like when they were kids, the chants were one thing and now they've gone back as adults and it's different. This is how it feels like when I was younger. Dungeon Master was a thing and now it's like Game Master, and I don't know what happened. But it seems, yeah, like you said, like no one's talking about it. Like what did we miss, Kaylee, while we were off doing other things?
Right? I mean, I had to go to college at some point.
Yeah,
guys. And
like
I know
we had
I was
to,
working. I couldn't.
We went away
I
to
couldn't just play Dungeons.
Like
and Dragons.
Steve from Blue's Clues. We went away to college, and now we're back, and we're doing our best.
So as far as I know,
Okay.
the game master Matt is voicing maybe at least one of the characters, and all
Okay.
of them are voicing their own characters.
Okay.
But they've got a huge cast, and they've pulled in a lot of really other big names. They're all friends that they frequently people that have also guest starred on their show. It's a very fun group, frankly. They've made me laugh so hard I've cried, and now they've got their own Twitch channel, YouTube channel, etc.
And it's all under Critical Role.
They do have a bunch of other things. So
You said there's a comic book?
and they've
Awesome.
got gorgeous art books.
Cool.
I've got the
You
first
know I love an art book.
girl.
Physically, though, not an NFT.
But no
Can I
problem.
tell you my pet theory about all this money sloshing around in the NFTs? My theory is that the vast majority of these people bought back when Ether was like $50. So the money means nothing to them because it's all profit. Like none of it matters.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's my theory. I don't know if it's true, but it seems plausible.
I honestly
Because they are
think
acting like the money doesn't matter.
could genuinely just be very rich. Like that
Yeah.
is here's $20,
Maybe.
go see a Star Wars, basically,
Maybe.
or whatever. You know, like that level.
How much could a banana cost? $9?
How much could a banana cost, Michael?
I've never watched that show of my own free will, but it is very funny.
Yeah, that's such a good way to put
I'm so not into cringe comedy. It's just
It
not my thing.
physically hurts. I love the memes.
The memes are great. The memes are awesome. I'm just not into, like,
Guys, humiliation is not funny for
like
me.
I get that it's funny for a lot of people, but it's not. It's same thing with like people falling down and getting hurt. That's not funny for me.
No, Jackass isn't great.
I don't know what it is. I mean, I don't have any issues with people watching it. Like, it's fine. It's just not my thing. It makes me feel horrible, and like
Yeah.
I need to go like hug someone because I feel bad.
You feel like you need to scrub your skin out on the other side.
Or just like hug someone and be like, it's okay. And they're like, I'm not hurt. And it's like, I know, but I can't hug the person on the screen. I'm not even the mom friend.
Yeah, no, it really hurts the mom friend.
And
I
like
say
you,
as the mom friend.
You are the mom friend. I can only imagine how bad it is for you.
It's so painful. I have seen, there are some movies that I can't watch. Like,
I bet.
speaking of rom-coms, especially from like the 90s or early aughts. And
Yes.
Drew Barrymore has some films that I cannot watch. They physically...
People who are into cringe comedy, like, you are a special breed of super person because I get so cringed out. Like, I can't. The other day someone brought up the movie Anastasia, and I realized
I was
haven't
just thinking
watched it in a
of Batty
while.
and like...
Oh my god,
his
and just
little
Rasputin
number.
in hell, like just dropping bones, and you're just like, what the fuck? This is a kid's movie. It's so, I love Rasputin as a character. He's such a,
What a fantastic
Insane
figure.
human.
Like, how did this man actually exist? Did he just have like was he a triplet? Did he
has
die like 7 times?
crazy eye, and like every picture of him, he looks insane. Like, who trusted this man with children?
The queen, the Tsarina, apparently.
Out of her mind. And
Oh my
apparently
God.
he was just like a nympho and
Oh god, yeah.
just banging everything, and they trusted him with children.
He was a biblical scholar, Annie.
Crazy. He had crazy eyes, Kaylee. He had crazy eyes.
He was no, I mean, like, I don't even necessarily care about his eyes so much as the reports that he was.
He didn't bathe.
Nicely,
He didn't
He
bathe.
was unkempt.
Ew. Apparently he
Unhygienic.
smelled like, what is this man?
How? Like, how did he do the things that he did?
Like, alpha male out
deal with
there,
it.
guys, you think that you are hot shit, but think about this man with crazy
don't-
eyes who didn't bathe and got top tier Tsarina sex. You got nothing.
You got no game.
Get out of the gym.
If you can't walk up to someone
Unbathed.
unkempt, unbathed, your teeth not brushed, your hair not brushed,
Ugh.
stench, with crazy eyes, and still
Bang the
it out.
Tsarina. Then you
got
clearly, your game is not good enough.
yeah.
God,
You are not
Rasputin.
Russia's greatest love machine.
We've gone totally off the rails.
I don't know where we're at. I'm so sorry. I definitely...
We just got all the way through. Okay, I think we can go
ruined
ahead and say
everything.
that the what we're reading section is over.
Yes.
So we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to jump into our main section today, which I am titling Stranger Than Fiction. It is talking about inspiration in your fiction and taking inspiration from everyday life. We will be back in just a minute. Welcome back. We are jumping right into our main section today, which is Stranger Than Fiction, finding inspiration in the real world. Kaylee, how do you usually find inspiration in the real world?
Oh, I mean, we've talked multiple times about how my life is occasionally a sitcom. And it runs the gamut.
Often a sitcom, I would say.
It is. I've seen many cartoonish events happen in public that I just would never have
just
believed.
Today, where you'd had like a small follower when you were trying to wipe off your car.
Oh my gosh, this little child was adorable, but like genuinely made it very difficult for me. Thankfully,
sure.
my life is usually not aggressively negative aspects. Like I've seen like a Looney Tunes style like a vulture slide down a wall because she didn't quite stick the landing.
Really?
Oh yeah. We did like a castle show, and I was just like, nobody will ever believe this happened in real life. This is something you see legitimately on Looney Tunes, because she went splat and slid down the whole thing.
Are you
and
serious?
Then it's very difficult for them to get going again. Like, she just waddled around until her handlers came and picked her up.
Well, yeah, I mean, she ran into a wall.
She was fine. She was just a little embarrassed. I told you about the museum the other day.
Yeah, that's right.
That was really funny.
That's incredible.
So if I wanted to just write domestic, I could write for Hallmark or Disney. I could also write, or I told you, I've got multiple script ideas. I'm just very lazy. I just need to write them. But I could, based on Stranger Than Fiction.
Yeah.
We have this man, the spine collector. This alleged criminal. Mm-hmm. This person who is the alleged spine collector. Or that's the name they're calling the person, and they think they found the guy, and he's, it's undergoing the trial right now. So his behavior, odd.
So odd.
Reasoning, pretty mundane.
Anyway, we don't know why he was doing what he was doing, so there's tons of room there for a fiction story, I feel.
So anyway, I'm gonna come back around to the fact that this man is boring, and I'm gonna give his crime a better twist. It's gonna be like a training ring for.
Yeah. What would your story be? Tell me what would your like plot be? Like give me your outline.
All right. So there's like a younger son, like heir to the king, heir in a spare sort of deal to like an existing crime family, and like the other, like the spare is like, I can do it, and they're like, no, and he like takes his crew off and like figures out how to get into the new market and helps bring them out of like the old like shittier ways of doing. I don't know.
How would he do it? Would it be like heist style, like Ocean's 11 style, like get a crew together, or would it be him on his own, like a lone wolf?
So I think it would have to be a combination. No, it would be a crew, and so just to keep it interesting, it would be a combination. So like initially, it would just be like we were talking about social engineering tactics and training people up and learning and like having more of a psychological kind of thriller.
So he's like starting his own thing. Well, then you'd have to follow one victim throughout.
Mm-hmm. Or no, yes, like, but it'd be more like leverage style. So it would be maybe a couple episodes or something, but like not like for a full season.
Sure.
But then you can't get one, and then you have to get that one. So then you have the physical heist, just to keep things interesting.
I love that.
And then they have to figure out like these are totally different, and then that's where his family comes in, because they've got more of the hard skills than the soft skills. Bringing it all together.
I like that. That's a good one.
Girl, I'm ready. Disney can also hire me to write Tron 3. I've had an idea for over a decade.
Yes.
And it makes perfect sense.
Absolutely. I mean, Kaylee and I bonded over our love of the Tron franchise. I want to say my favorite story that I found, like my favorite headline, it's from the New York Times. It is, plagues strike Egypt. Sudden floods, then 4-inch scorpions called death stalkers swept from the desert burrows. Hundreds, if not thousands of scorpions skittered into villages, stinging at least 503 people. That's a real story that came from November 2021.
I had not seen that. Oh my god.
And I was like, immediately, there is a post-apocalypse story here. This is like 100%. I immediately had a vision of that scene from one of the Resident Evil movies. I think it was Resident Evil 3, when the crows just come and attack the survivors, because the crows are now zombies because they've been eating the infected flesh.
Of course.
That would be an incredible scene in the middle of just scorpion.
Oh god.
Because of and apparently it was related, like the flood.
Oh yeah.
It like flushed them out of wherever they were. So, and then the scorpions stung 503 people. Bonkers.
Well, there was that interesting like potential suggestion on why like the original plagues could have been triggered by a drought. And it's just like
droughts and then floods and
and it's not saying that that's definitely what happened, but like it seemed a fairly reasonable series of events. I mean, I'm sure even now there were probably people going, this is God punishing us or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, not to be too on the nose, but like we were in the middle of a like once in a life, hopefully fingers crossed, knock on wood, once in a lifetime pandemic. I mean, who would have thought that all the events that have happened that we've seen recently would have happened?
Oh, yeah.
Half of the plot of Watchmen is that in a crisis people band together. Turns out we don't. Turns out we get really mad at each other and blame each other and just angle our anger at each other. And I think that's really interesting. Like when you're writing, it's really easy to be critical of yourself, I think, especially when you're writing fiction. You're like, oh, this is dumb. People wouldn't act this way. But I mean, honestly, the point of every fiction story is tension. It's two things that want to exist together but can't, or two things that can't exist together but want to. And there is that tension all around us. For example, the scorpions wanted to stay in their little holes, but they couldn't, and so they came out and attacked everyone.
And then they were much scared. They were much more scared of the people involved, and that's why they were attacking.
Exactly.
They were much larger than the scorpions.
Yeah. Going back to like finding inspiration, I think there's like, what is it, the Einstein quote? Inspiration, it's genius is like 90% inspiration. Getting anything done is about finding inspiration.
And again, truth is stranger than fiction, because fiction has to make sense. Like, I just want to, that's
Right?
the end of the section title,
good.
to be honest. Like, because stuff happens in real life, and you would, if it happened in a novel, you'd be like, no, that's too cliche.
Yeah.
This doesn't actually happen.
Right.
No, but it does.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, you can't, that's what I'm like, nobody's ever gonna believe this happened to me.
Yeah.
That we were just walking through the museum and some random lady came up and asked to take a picture of our baby.
Because the baby was just so
too
cute.
It was very silly. People don't really do that in public. Yeah, they do.
Apparently they do.
So-
And specifically asking to hold the baby up next to the artwork because the baby is extra cute next to the artwork. Like, that is such a funny story. I cannot believe that really happened. Guys, Kaylee has photographic evidence that this happened.
It was so
Some lady
funny.
just walked up to her family and were like, your baby is super cute. Can I take a picture of how cute your baby is? And they were like, sure.
And she was like, yeah, hold her up again.
It's so cute.
It was
And
very cute.
in fairness, it is a very cute baby.
She got cute little chubby cheeks. Yeah, Alex's niece is real cute. So,
Yeah.
good genes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you. Whenever I'm trying to write fiction, I don't usually go for like looking for scenes out in the wild. I usually just like have a concept for a story or a character, or maybe like a scene that popped into my head that has nothing to do. But I 100%, like if something super interesting happens in the world, I'm like, oh my God,
Yep.
can't believe it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, no, I always wanted to write like a fantasy novel or something, but then I come back and it's just like the stuff that I'm really interested in is fairly, even in fantastic settings, it's so mundane. The books I've come back to are even like, it's just these people that are living in fantasy world but dealing with like fantasy taxes. It's just silly things. I have a Tron fan fiction that I've written that is just, how do you deal with the fact that this happens in the real world, been basically brainwashed or gaslit, and how do you come back from that with the people that you've hurt? I love character-driven pieces. Like, I've already spoken to you. I think I've told that's what the media I like. For example, I really love a very specific set of crime dramas. Plot isn't the point. The characters existing in the world, driving these interesting things forward, and you just give them interesting things to do during scenes.
What would your Tron number 3 be?
All right, so in the first movie, of course, you've got this guy whose company basically stole his ideas and ousted him, and so they're making a lot of money off of his video games, even though they're like a big tech company now.
Yeah.
So he wants to send his security program into the mainframe and get evidence, essentially. So his ex-girlfriend, her new boyfriend, they also work for the company, and he's got a security program, and it's such a fun movie. It's so stupid. They go into the internet. They go into the computer. So they go into the computer. It's not the internet, and find the evidence and break through and take down the master control program. And then they bring it out, and it's great. Second one happens, and it's 2 decades later, and the main character from the first one, Jeff Bridges' character, has disappeared, and things are it's modern times, and his son is now a grown young man. You have him, releasing the next iteration of the operating system into the wild. It's like the heist in the very beginning of the movie to kind of set the tone for who this young man is and who the company is, because they're more profit driven, less about the good of the whole and collective support and cooperation, etc. It's more of a capitalist monster at this point. So he releases the next operating system, makes it free. So my thought would be for number 3 that, or the villain from the first movie, his son is in. Like,
yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. In the
he's in the second one.
That scene, yeah.
And so like I'd say like they're working together to sort of get more ties into the corporate world, and that's actually the next iteration of the master control program. And accidentally Sam unleashed it to like all the major companies and players in the world, both like, you know, all of the libraries and colleges and financial institutions that might be able to implement with it. Minor, like people that are directly just taking advantage of the operating system and stuff.
That's brilliant.
And so
because it's open access. Yeah. And everyone would totally use it because it's open access. It's free.
Yeah. So
oh my God, Kaylee, that's brilliant.
He and his new ISO friend and any potential programs that survived the second movie. Right. We don't know. Like he took it with him.
Right.
He might have been able to restore it. They get to go into the internet, and what do you do and how do you explain the difference? Because they kept it in the second one. It was still
a closed system,
a closed circuit. Yeah. It was just that network.
Right.
But you have, and that gives you
and
so much
they were
option.
trying to get to the internet. They were trying to get out.
Yeah, they were trying to get out
onto they didn't know that, but they would have gone onto the internet if they had gotten out.
So it was just
that's a good idea. And because the internet is so cutthroat, like I can only imagine how
and it gives you a lot
terrifying
more to
it would
expand out like the world. Anyway,
right.
I think that Disney hit me up.
That's a good one. I like that. I can't think of any real world digital heists other than the ones where they're just getting into infrastructure and then shutting it down. I don't know if you remember that pipeline where they were able
the
they
pipeline.
didn't actually shut it down. It was it started with a C. Was it Dakota? Maybe. I thought it started with a C. Anyway, so it was in this pipeline where they attacked the like admin systems, and they didn't shut the pipeline down, but they threatened to.
Oh, it was the like they took the ransomware. Was it ransomware?
Yeah, it was ransomware. So like the next batch of crime novels is going to be about like crypto ransomware, and they're like demanding this stuff in Bitcoin, and of course like the companies are paying because they're like, we cannot afford to be out, and then the FBI is like reimbursing or getting some of it back. And with crypto wallets, because many of them are extremely secure, many of them are not, but many of them are extremely secure. I can only imagine incredible stuff that we're going to see moving forward.
Oh yeah, it should be very
There's so much more interesting stuff with crypto because it is secure, but it's also trackable. Like you can be anonymous with a crypto token, but you can tell where that token's been. Like that's part of the thing. Like it's actually very difficult to commit a crime and go unnoticed. But I mean, you can be anonymous. So if like that's all that you do, if all that you ever do on the blockchain is crime, then it'd be very difficult to track you. But if you are doing literally anything else on the blockchain, they can find you.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's going to be one of those things where we're adding like a digital layer to crime, and I think that will be really, really interesting. We're going to see, I think, a death of a lot of like the more traditional like cozy cottage mysteries.
I mean, I would say there's still going to be a renaissance, probably, in addition to what you just said. Like, there's definitely going to be a surge, but there's going to be a backlash. And then also we're just going to get a massive number of, this is a crypto crime, and it's not at all, and it's wrong as shit.
Right.
Like Hollywood hacking style, but it should be interesting and a fun ride either way.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier when we were talking about how in rom-coms specifically, because I have genuinely lost control of my life and I'm bringing it up for the 9th time today, it's always that they're in some creative industry. They work for a magazine or they're an author or something. We were talking about how unrealistic it is that they have all this free time.
They would just be working all the time. They have to feed themselves, and it is hard.
Yeah, I always wonder how in legal dramas, how do actual lawyers view legal dramas? Because it seems like they're never working either, but I assume lawyers work a lot.
Yes, I could only assume, so many hours.
And that's the thing, when we talk about writing, and especially in magazines, which is where a lot of these things are based, there'll be editors, and they'll be talking about, I just got to finish this article, and then they'll be done in 10 minutes. Sir, editing takes hours on one article, and you're just staring at your screen with
I have to figure out where I want to put this period.
I wish that No. Here's one. What is the weirdest thing that you have ever read and then been shocked to find out that it was based on a true story?
Oh, God. One of the BuzzFeed Unsolved crew used to do they do weird history shows or whatever. They have it.
That sounds like a BuzzFeed Unsolved thing.
And it was one of the popes, upon the death of his predecessor, dug him up and put him on trial.
What?
Yes.
Really?
Happened in real life.
What?
Yes.
That
I
is
looked
so
that up.
fucking creepy.
Yeah, it was his rotting corpse.
Oh, that is
And it
so
was-
gross.
A while after his death.
One of my favorite ones is, you might have seen the trailer for this. It was a show called Gentleman Jack, about this woman who lived in the Victorian era, and she wrote extensive diaries. So she's a real person, and we know a lot about her life. Well, we don't know how she would have identified today, but she dressed in suits. Mm-hmm. And she was attracted to women, and she took a wife, and she negotiated with her wife's parents, and they had the whole like dowry and everything, and her parents were like, well, we want to make sure she has a good life, like, can you provide for her? What, obviously her name is slipping my mind, but it's like such a cool, interesting story, and it really, really happened. And a lot of what we know about England in this time period is from her diaries, because she just kept copious notes. It's very cool, in my opinion.
Learn something interesting recently. That was when I went to Williamsburg over the summer. The laws were changed after this to prevent this from happening again. But a slave converted to Christianity and then sued successfully for her freedom, because she didn't think it was legal for her to be a slave anymore under the laws, and she was correct.
In Williamsburg that happened? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was in the colonies, in the original colonies at the time, and I believe it was in,
That's amazing.
local. So it was, and then they changed the law so that
there's so much story out in the world. Half the time we don't even need to write fiction. I love a good narrative nonfiction.
That's a good point. I don't read a lot of nonfiction, but narrative nonfiction is always really interesting.
Have you read Devil in the White City?
No, I have not.
It's about the 1893 World's Fair. The one with A.J. Holmes. It's really, really good. Eric Larson is an incredible writer. I love his stuff.
The Devil in
the White City.
Okay.
One of the things that I feel like fiction writers hit on almost more than nonfiction writers is writer's block. When you're creating something out of whole cloth, it's so hard to maintain that momentum and just be that creative all the time.
Well, because you're responsible for everything, which is why fan fiction is an outlet for a lot of people, because you don't have to come up with the entire world. You just have to pick the things that you like and run with it.
And you read something that even has like a vague character related to something that you're writing, and you're like, oh, that's how that person would behave in this situation. Maybe I can go back and write out that scene, or write out that plot point, or something like that. I think that that's something that's really, really valuable.
Keep an eye out in your life, because I'm sure absurd things happen to you too. It can't just be me.
If you are listening to this, what I want you to do is send us in your sitcom moments. What is the weirdest thing that has ever happened to you in your life? Even if it sounds unbelievable and you think we're not going to believe it, we promise to believe it. We do have an email address now. It is inksyncpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter @the_inksync and on Instagram, inksyncpodcast. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope to have many, many more episodes with you coming soon. I have been Annie.
I am Kaylee.
Everybody, please know that Trixie is a very cute doggy, and this is a Trixie fan podcast.
She got one broken ear and one good ear.
Oh, baby, oh,
So cute.
so cute. Good girl. Purebred good girl.